These days, nearly everything you encounter, from the time you get out of bed in the morning till you return to it at night, is part of a brand. Your favorite restaurant has a brand, the shoes on your feet are branded, and yeah, even that bed you sleep on is branded. Even the non-branded stuff is kind of a brand, if you think about it. We know brands by their logos, visual calling cards that are instantly identifiable, at least if it's a good one. The really good ones tell a story and make an impact that changes the way you think about the products. They tell you what you're going to get, and they leave you feeling a certain something. And seeing them again brings that feeling back. While you're surrounded by the art and design of branding every day, you may not know much about the people and the stories behind the world's most famous logos. The Golden Arches, one of the most recognizable logos in the world. Their story didn't start in a corporate boardroom, but instead can be traced back to when McDonald's was just a small barbecue stand in California, owned by brothers Richard and Maurice McDonald in the 1940s. When the brothers realized that most of their sales were coming from hamburgers, they simplified their menu and focused on pioneering the fast food system. This new streamlined process proved successful. Business was so good, in fact, that in 1952, the brothers decided to open a second location. They wanted their new store to be eye-catching, but they also wanted to create an environment that encouraged customers to come in, finish their meal promptly, and then go about their day. The brothers worked with an architect named Stanley Clark Meston to design the new location. Richard quickly sketched half-circle arches to convey a sense of movement and speed, and Meston took it from there. They liked it so much that the arch design became a requirement for every franchise McDonald's opened in the 1950s. By the 1960s, McDonald's was looking to change its branding, and attempts were made to create a fresh new logo. But it was Jim Schindler, the company's head of engineering and design, who repurposed the Golden Arches into a stylized M. Even as the company's branding has changed with the times, the Golden Arches have remained a crucial part of the McDonald's brand, with 86% overall awareness in the top 10 countries that McDonald's surveyed in 2004. According to Stephen Von Worley, in the US, the furthest you can possibly be from a McDonald's location is 107 miles. So whether it's highway rest stops or busy cityscapes, you can't get very far without seeing those Golden Arches, harkening back to a dream between two brothers who inherited a family business over 75 years ago. Similar to the Golden Arches, the Nike swoosh is clean and clear and immediately evokes images of quickness and athleticism. The Nike brand is worth over $26 billion, but it may surprise you to find out that the logo only cost $35. In 1971, Carolyn Davidson, a graphic design student at Portland State University, was mentioning to a friend outside of class one day that she couldn't afford to take an oil painting class. One of the associate professors, Phil Knight, happened to be walking by and overheard. Knight asked Davidson if she'd be interested in doing some freelance work for Blue Ribbon Sports, a company he'd co-founded with track coach Bill Bowerman. Davidson agreed at the rate of $2 an hour. Part of the assignment was to come up with a logo for a shoe brand that they were working on. Knight wanted it to convey movement and motion, and Davidson's job was to make Knight happy while moving away from his obsession with the Adidas logo. Davidson tried hundreds of ideas, and while she admits that she doesn't quite know how long it took, she only charged for 17.5 hours of work. She'd sketch logos out on tissue paper and put them over shoes to see if they worked on the shoe itself. When Davidson presented her team members with various designs, nothing was particularly well received, but Knight kept coming back to the first design of the lot, the infamous swoosh. The brand was given the name Nike, and it took over a decade for Davidson to get the recognition she deserved. But in 1983, Nike threw a party in her honor and presented her with a diamond-encrusted gold ring with the swoosh on it, along with 500 shares of Nike stock, now worth well over $600,000. Some brands develop myths and legends around their origin stories. Even Apple, arguably the most famous tech company in the world, known for its focus on simplicity and function, doesn't have a clear and obvious history for its iconic logo. One urban legend insists that the apple itself is intended to evoke the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge from the book of Genesis. Another says it's a sly reference to Alan Turing, the grandfather of computing whose research broke German codes during World War II. Prosecuted for his homosexuality, Turing committed suicide by eating an apple poisoned with cyanide. Rob Janoff, the creator of the logo, admits that he doesn't know the exact reason why Apple was named Apple, but suggested it's possibly because Steve Jobs once lived on a farm in Northern California with an apple orchard. A look back at the very first Apple logo might provide a touch more clarity on this. The first logo was designed by Apple's co-founder Ronald Wayne. This logo features a hand-drawn illustration of Sir Isaac Newton sitting under an apple tree with the conspicuous apple hanging right above him. According to legend, Newton devised the theory of gravity after being struck by a falling apple. The idea was solid even if the logo itself was complex, but Steve Jobs wasn't really a huge fan, so they hired Janoff in 1977 to design a simpler one. The initial version featured rainbow stripes. According to Janoff, the rainbow colors were added to make the products look more user-friendly, appealing to school children, and to emphasize the Apple II's ability to show images in color. The logo has undergone only the slightest of changes over the years, and is easily one of the most identifiable in history, but it does make one wonder, If the apple doesn't represent Eve or Alan Turing, why is there a bite taken out of it? In a 2016 interview, Rob Janoff offered a simple explanation. I was going for the silhouette of an apple, but to make it look more like an apple and not some other round fruit, I did what one does with an apple. I took a bite out of it. If you've studied logo design at all, you're probably expecting us to talk about FedEx. Okay, fine. The FedEx logo we all know and love had a long journey to fruition. The first logo, created in the early 1970s by Richard Runyon, showcased in thick letters the company's full name, Federal Express. That logo was certainly bold, but it looked a bit too much like something out of Tron to age very well. In 1994, a designer from the brand consulting agency Landor Associates by the name of Lyndon Leader began work on a new simplified design focused on clarity. In an interview published in The Laws of Subtraction, Leader said this about the FedEx logo. Early sketches always have too much going on, too much to think about, and too much extraneous stuff. I slowly begin to remove things, but it's always the final one that's far more simple and far more clear than the more elaborate ones I labored over at the beginning. Once FedEx approved changing their name, Leader's team got to work. Everyone knows that the FedEx logo features a hidden spoon, but did you know there's also a hidden arrow? As Leader was experimenting with fonts, he noticed the outline of an arrow appear between the E and the X. Using two different fonts as a base, he tweaked the kerning until the arrow appeared to fit naturally. But not everyone understood that the value of the design was how understated it was. In that same interview, Leader recounts, FedEx's PR firm immediately wanted to supersize it. They wanted to make it obvious, fill it in with another color. They didn't get it. It wasn't about the arrow. An arrow isn't even interesting to look at. It's only because of the subtlety that it's intriguing. Luckily for FedEx and design trivia connoisseurs everywhere, good sense won out and Leader's design went on to become a legend in the logo world. He says the most rewarding aspect of the design is when children first see the arrow by themselves and point it out to their parents. That kind of recognition is exactly what branding and logo design are all about. Michael Beirut, partner at the acclaimed design agency Pentagram, said, "People forget that a brand new logo seldom means a thing. It is an empty vessel awaiting the meaning that will be poured into it by history and experience. The best thing a designer can do is make that vessel the right shape for what it's going to hold." If you're interested in learning more about branding and logos, you may want to check out some classes on Skillshare, like this class led by designer Aaron Draplin, where he explores the finer points of design, color, shape, and typography in logos. Whatever your interests, we've got a wide range of classes on Skillshare, from creating art to starting a business, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. You can start for free by clicking here, but if you'd just like to watch more videos, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell if you want to know right when we post. Or just tell us what you think of the Skillshare logo down in the comments.